right, what's happening? Welcome to the show. It's what day is today? 4/19/2020. How's it going? This is episode 4 of Can I Get More Podcasts in My Monitor? Check. How's everybody doing today? It was strange, the strange times continue. But what can you do about it? We just got to keep on living, man. Livin. As a couple people, I guess, know, it was my birthday this past week. I am getting old. I had a friend of mine we have a birthday a month apart, and he has all sorts of bandwidth for, all the craziness that's going on in the world and just all sorts of stuff. But he doesn't have bandwidth for like how old we are, which I suppose is, it's not a horrible thing. But he walks up and he's like, gives me this cheesy point, and he goes, "So, how old are we today?" So I have to constantly remind him that he's a little bit, a month younger than me. And so I have to tell him what our age is all the time, as well as where he put his coffee. So you know who you are. Which then that means that it was also Seth Rogan's birthday. He stole all my stuff. I'm kidding. I have no idea, but we laugh alike and stuff like that. So there used to be more of a likeness, I guess, but I don't know. Whatever, doesn't matter. Other news, Howard Finkel passed away. The Fink. If you're a wrestling fan, then obviously you know him. Ring announcer for many, 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 many years. He was Vince's first employee. That one hurt. It hurt my childhood feels. Shit, it hurt my adult feels. Pretty much you remember him from your childhood, especially if you're in my age bracket. We grew up on Howard Finkel. So I won't do too much of a bastardized version of his voice, but you know who I'm talking about. So rest in power, sir. 69 years old, but he had a bunch of health problems, I guess. So rest in power. UFC is supposedly back on. I don't know if they're doing it at this Fight Island or whatever, but May 9th. They're back, allegedly, until they're not. Gonna do Ferguson, Gate, and Gaethje. Ferguson's such a freaking psycho that weigh-in would have been Friday, so the 17th. The fight was supposed to be last night. He weighed in. Anyways. He made championship weight because he's a freaking psychopath. I don't know if that's going to do anything to him. Doing that and then 3 weeks later having to do it again. But he's crazy enough where it probably won't hurt him. Don't have to be tired to throw elbows, apparently. Of course, that guy doesn't get tired anyways. Supposedly we're going to have Cejudo and Cruz. Dominic Cruz coming out of another long layoff. Cejudo just calling everybody out because he feels he can. So that should be fun. Pettis and Cerrone again should be fun. Guys are coming off losses, but it should be an entertaining fight nonetheless. Pettis is a Milwaukee born and raised and trained, so gotta pull for him, but you can't go against the Cowboy either. Because he's just so freaking awesome. So that'll be a fun fight. Nunes and Spencer, maybe. Not sure. Let's see here. Jeremy Stevens and Kelvin Kattar. That's going to be a Yeah, that's going to burn it down. That might be fight of the night. Supposedly we're getting Ngannou and Rosenstrike. Another one that it'll either go the Derek Lewis route or they will. I don't think it's going to go. It ain't going to go 3. Let's see, Vicente Luque and Nico Price. That one should be another fun fight. Nico Price is a psychopath, as I suppose they all are, but you got to be, let's see, what is the analogy I can use? Your screws have to be loose, I think, to want to be punched in the face, for money. I mean, I suppose that's better than getting punched in the face for fun, but coffee break. All right. Anyways, I want to get into the meat of what my show is going to be today. It actually took me quite a while to figure this out. I took Monday off of work. Thankfully, I am still working. I took Monday off of work and it kind of threw my whole week off. Normally by like Wednesday or so, I start having some sort of idea of what I'm going to talk about. Excuse me. Wednesday came and went, and then Thursday came, and I was like, oh, geez, I haven't even thought about the show yet. This doing this every week hasn't quite sunk in yet. I look forward to it, but the week goes along, and then I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. I have to actually kind of formulate a few thoughts here that I don't normally do because kind of go, I don't know. Sometimes I go brain dead throughout the week. I'm going to get some more coffee here. Nectar of the gods. But anyways, Friday comes around. Still don't really have anything formulated. And I have topics that are written down, just kind of future topics, or if something that I'm talking about on a previous episode or whatever kind of strikes something, kind of like what last week's show was about. But nothing was really coming to mind. And I was starting to get a little anxiety about it. And I start formulating a little bit on Friday night. Not really happy where it's going. And then yesterday, finally, it started to click. I had a kind of a direction that I was going to go, and then it kind of morphed into something else. So I think it's pretty neat, and I think in this day and age, and especially for right now, a lot of people are probably in the same boat. And this came up because I had off on Monday. And I actually played through my guitar amp for the first time, and I don't know. I don't remember the last time I even turned it on, in all honesty. It's sitting right here. It's actually kind of funny what my topic's going to be, but my camera is, I'm using my guitar amp as the perch for the camera. So, hi, guitar amp. But anyways, I played through my guitar amp for the first time on Monday, and it was painful almost. You never realize how long of a layoff you take playing through guitar amp and then how different it is. And my topic turned out to be today, is my guitar amp a giant paperweight? And it kind of seems like it has been for the last, it's had to have been 6-9 months at least. Maybe even a year since I've turned my guitar amp on. And it sits in the same spot, looking pretty, but you know what? I got my cowboy hat on it. I had some of my Funko Pops on it. I actually had paper underneath it. Not that it was holding it down, but it was acting as a giant paperweight. And I wanted to kind of explore that a little bit this week. It does, you know what? It does make a good one because it is freaking heavy. I got a combo amp originally to cut down on stuff to have to carry. and I probably added 50 pounds, but I had one. I had less stuff to carry. Yeah, I mean it's freaking heavy. I think the thing weighs 90 pounds. I'm pretty sure it does. Luckily, it's got handles all over it. It's a PV6505 50-watt combo, 212 monster amp. It's got vintage 30s in it, which is super cool when I bought it. I got a pretty good deal on it. You know, you get rid of some stuff to get some new stuff. I've had it for over a year. I had it. Yeah, it's probably closer to 2 years at this point. But I got it when 215 was going to start getting back together. That would have been in 2018. I wanted to simplify my rig a bit. I'm getting older. And it's also nice to be able to just grab a few things and get the hell off stage rather than having to grab a whole bunch of stuff. So I figured putting two into one would probably be a better option. So there's drawbacks and advantages to that, but that's for another time, I think. But yeah, I've had it for a while. It's heavy. The one drawback, I guess, is it being a combo amp. I can't just put a cabinet in the other room and mic it up. I got to put the whole thing over there, so it's kind of a pain in the ass. I don't really have there's not a great spot to put it. I got a decent spot to put it now because I have a cabinet, a 212 cabinet that I kind of set it on. So it works fine with that, but just it's in the pain in the ass if I want to record it because I got to put it in the other room. I got to run a bunch of cables, and then with it being a combo amp, if I don't like exactly what's going on, I got to go in the room, go back over, and kind of go back and forth between rooms and stuff like that. So it is kind of a pain in the ass. I got cords running all over, but wah. It is a tube amp, so it sounds different every time you play it. You know, I hadn't played it for 9 months. Kind of almost forgot what it sounded like, in all honesty. But I know that every time you turn it on, if it's a week, every 3 days, whatever it is, every day, it's going to sound different. Maybe, you know, the one day you let it warm up for 10 minutes. Then the next day you let it warm up for 4 minutes. And then the one day you got it on for 20 before you start playing through it. It all changes it. Anybody else who has a tube amp will understand exactly what I'm talking about. Every time I play it, it's different. It feels different. It sounds different. There's some, you know, anytime you put it in a different place, it sounds different. You think you got the EQ dialed up for wherever your rehearsal space is, and you take it to a gig and it sounds completely different. What the hell just happened? And you got to re-EQ it all. Sorry, you keep it EQ the same. Excuse me. Maybe it'll sound like garbage that day. Typically, they're pretty consistent as far as they won't sound too freaking horrible. But there's some days where it's just like, what the hell happened to my amp? Did I blow a tube? What's going on here? One of the other drawbacks is so damn loud. It's 50 watts, but you know, any tube amp guy knows that 20 watts is cranks. 15 watts freaking cranks. You can keep up with a band with a 15 watt amp. You could probably keep up with a band with one of them 10 or maybe even a 5 watt, but you got no headroom. But I got the thing in here. I would say it's probably about, the speakers are probably about waist high. And I have the thing on like, it doesn't have a master volume. So I have the post gains like 1 or as close to 0 while it's still making a decent sound. And it is so freaking loud. You know, and obviously there's no headphone on. I don't really typically do that anyways, but even if I had an amp with a headphone out, but it is so freaking loud. Again, on Monday when I was playing, I'm playing, and I kept having to turn it down. And again, this is the first time I played it in like 9 months or whatever. I got my pedal board all set out. I redid my pedal board, which is cool. But and I'm just, you hit a power chord or whatever, and it's cranking, and I had to keep turning it down. And I actually text my wife, and I go, "Hey," she's like, "Did you do anything productive today?" It's because she's not on me about like having to, if I'm home, having to do a bunch of crap. She realizes that I don't get too many days off, so if I have an extra day off, she doesn't harp on me at all. And I don't have her either. It's not fair to do that. So, enjoy your day off. Do whatever makes you happy. Well, she shows, did you do anything today or accomplish anything? So, well, I played through my guitar amp. She says, oh, that's cool. How'd that go? I was like, it's so loud. I touched her and said, I forgot how damn loud that thing is. I have it almost off, and it's so freaking loud. And she kind of gave me the laugh, through the text, I'm like, I'm seriously, I am, those, if it's too loud, you're too old kind of thing. I'm too old. I'm them. It was so loud. Oh, it hurt. It felt great, but it hurt at the same time. And the cats are freaking out. I probably should have closed the door, but they're all looking at me like, what are you doing, you crazy fat man? They didn't want to get near me. So that was kind of funny. But I text my wife, it's so loud. Like, I'm going to have to get a 15-watt amp. But then I'm like, well, I still want that 15-watt amp, that PRS, that Mark Tremonti 15. Woo! That's nice sounding amp. Little nerd talk there for a moment, but that's a 15-watt amp, and I'm sure it'll still blow the doors off the house. But, you never know till you try, right? But, yeah, it is so damn loud. Fun, but loud. But then also what else happened when I was playing through the guitar amp, I said, I don't sound good. Why am I not sounding good? Like, it's noisy, and you have a little bit of amp noise, but that's not what I'm talking about. Like, I play a chord and it sounds sloppy, and just, you get all these funky noises, and I'm like, what is going on here? And for all this time, like I said, I haven't played through my guitar amp. I've been playing through amp sims in my computer, writing demos and stuff like that. I've written lots of tunes, but they're all running amp sims, every single one of them. And I've gotten so used to playing through those on my computer that when I play through a real amp, I don't sound very good. And that's kind of what it has to be, because I know when I've played through tons of kind of cruddy amps, I always have. I don't spend a lot of money on gear. I've had a lot of it, but I don't spend a lot of money on single parts of gear. But this amp is probably, I had a real high end amp way back in the day, but this is probably the first real high end amp I've had in, let's see, 18 was the time, probably 15 years. It's a really good amp. So I know there's a learning curve, but I've been playing through amp sims for the last year, we'll call it. So I want to go through over some of the advantages of playing or using amp sims, especially when you're doing a lot of recording. I do a lot of recording. I do all the demos. I write a bunch of songs and I kind of formulate the whole thing. This will be another topic for another time, but I when I write a song, I kind of formulate the entire song besides the vocals. So I'm not a vocalist. I'm definitely not a lyricist, but I can write songs and stuff like that, and I kind of have an idea of what the rest of the song kind of feels like. And when I'm playing with other people, when I'm working on these songs, I'm not like, you need to play this part right how it is. That's not how it is, but it is a general idea of what the feel and the direction of the song I want it to go. So I end up formulating the whole thing. It's just how it works for me. Some people just come up with riffs and they throw them all together. I like to have full-fledged ideas. We can change them. You know, I don't have any problem. I'm not married to any of the stuff. Some of the stuff is really cool. Like, no, toot my own horn, but some of it's cool. But I want to go through some of the advantages of playing on an amp sim. First of all, you get countless amps just with a couple clicks of the mouse. I can have super duper high gain amp sim of a lot of like what my guitar amp is, going through any cabinet I want. I can then get a shimmery clean that could be a Vox type clean, or I could get like a Fender clean really easily. Any reverb I want really easily. Couple clicks and boom, I got reverb. If I want to play something really ambient, which is not something that's typically in my repertoire, excuse me, I could do that. If I need like a crunch sound, if I'm going for like I need a 70s sound, easy, click, click, click. If I any cabinet, any speaker, couple clicks, super easy. The next thing I want to talk is they never change. If you use the same settings, the same amp sim, every time you load that thing up, it's going to sound exactly the same. It's going to sound the same that it did the last time, the time before that. The next time you fire it up, it's going to sound exactly the same. So you always know what you're getting. You learn what, if I have an amp sim and then I have a cabinet, you kind of learn, okay, if I want that ambient clean sound, I can use this amp. And then when I load my impulse response, which again I'll probably talk about, I'm not going to talk about a whole lot here, but I can load up any cabinet, any speaker, any microphone combination, and I can get the sound that I want, what I'm chasing. Really easy. Click, click, click. Couple clicks to the mouse. Maybe I got to EQ it a little bit. Big deal. Typically they are, they're cheaper. Obviously you can spend a lot of money. You can spend a lot of money on anything, but I can get an amp sim that has 20 amps in it and 50 different combinations of speaker cabinets and stuff like that for far less than I can spend on an amp head. That 15-watt amp head I was just talking about a few minutes ago, it's probably going to set me back $800. I think it's probably worth every bit of it, but either way, that's one amp rather than the 20 digital amps that I can download and not even leave my house for. And I don't have to lift them at all. They don't weigh 90 pounds. And I can get them right in the house for super cheap. I think you could probably spend a couple $100. I haven't. I'm in the, if you heard I'm in the free 99 category. I like to get stuff for free. Everybody does. I'm not stealing anything, so don't look down on me because of that. They're all free. That's just how I roll. I like to find free stuff, and a lot of it sounds pretty damn good, especially for writing demos. I mean, you could put some of that stuff on albums for, for sure. Absolutely. But it's free, most of them. I have, I don't like to spend a lot of money on gear. Again, like I said, I've had a lot of it, but I don't like to spend a lot of money on gear. I've had a couple decent expensive things. And I don't have them anymore. Not that I didn't want them, but whatever circumstances, but the most expensive guitar I've ever bought, I never bonded with. I got it through the mail. It was a great guitar. I liked it, but I didn't love it. And that was the most expensive guitar I've ever had. Sometimes it just doesn't. Sometimes you just don't bond with it. And then, unfortunately, I have it in my my closet at the moment. But I have a 2005 Squier 51. It's one of the only original designs that they made on the Squier line from Fender. And that was $150, probably, I don't know, 8-9 years ago. I probably bought that guitar, got it used, and I've modded it. I've changed a lot of things on it, but that's like my favorite guitar. I recorded the 215 Dark Passenger. I recorded it with 98% of that was with that guitar. That guitar threw a dual rec. That was not mine. I'd love to, but it wasn't mine. But nonetheless, I recorded that whole album with a $150 guitar. That was stock. I think I changed the bridge on it at that point. So yeah, that was a stock guitar, $150. And that's one of those guitars that I won't ever get rid of. I don't give a shit if I have to sell everything else. I mean, that'll hurt. No lies, that'll hurt. But that guitar, that's staying. Just something about it. I bonded with it almost instantly. It was really rad. But anyways, let me get back on topic here. I'll going off on tangents here, which is all right. Let's see here. Amp sim. They always sound good. You can do whatever you want to them. Just another clicks of the button. You know exactly what you're getting every time. Every time you turn it on. Pretty amazing. So why did I not sound as good when I was playing through my amp? Like I said, I got used to playing through amp sims, and I think when you play through an amp, like a real good amp, there's no place to hide. You notice that when someone steps up on the amp, it happened, I don't know, within the last year maybe or whatever. I noticed one of my buddies, you could tell that there was a learning curve because he had an amp and a setup, and then he super upgraded to an amazing setup, and he's an amazing guitar player. But you could tell that there was a learning curve. You, for whatever reason, with the higher end amp, there's less places to hide. And what that means is that you're going to hear every sour note. You're going to hear every finger scrape. You know, when you're going up and down the neck, you hear that shh, shh, shh. You're going to hear every single one, which isn't a bad thing because you're playing it. You know, that's what happens when you play, but it just gets amplified. You're going to hear the fret buzz. And fret, you don't hear it a lot, but you'll hear it. You're going to hear every wayward string hit if you don't mute your strings properly, because when you're playing when you're playing amplified, you're always muting strings. You have to, that's part of accuracy. You always have to mute strings with what part of your hand you're not playing with. So if it's muting with your fretting hand, either your thumb or your pinky or whatever, muting a string, or you use your right hand to mute strings. These are all things that you really, really have to keep in consideration when you're playing through a high-end amp. You have to be really sensitive to every single thing, and it makes you pay attention. You can't get lazy while playing through any amp, really, but for definitely a high-end amp, because it's there to make the most accurate sounds. And when you're sloppy, it'll tell you. You're sloppy, and that's an accurate representation of your sloppiness. Amp sims, they seem to be really forgiving. I'm not sure exactly why that is, but I have a couple ideas. I know when I was just playing through my amp the other day, you stand right in front of it. Yeah, everybody knows when you're playing guitar, if you have any gain on it or whatever, and you stand right in front of it, it's going to feed back. And it makes other noises every time like I said, if you hit a wayward string or whatever, feeding back, you get your buzzing noise from your power not being great. I don't have super duper clean power in my office, studio, whatever you want to call this, my extra bedroom here. This is where all my magic happens. So you get all sorts of weird noises that you don't get. You can get some noises through the amp sim for sure, but you don't get all of those. It's really difficult to generate feedback on your amp sim. You have to really, really crank it, and you can still stick your guitar in front of the speakers. It creates that loop, but it's not easy. A lot of times you have to do some sort of like natural harmonic and fade the volume in or something like that. That's just one of them. Maybe the harmonics that are created are slightly different. It is a digital representation of a real amp, so it is just zeros and ones. There's something that gets lost in there. That's far above my pay grade. But when you play distortion, that generates tons of different harmonics and different overtones that you don't get when you're playing, clean, for instance. You get some when you're playing acoustic, but they are different. Those are different kind of things. But the harmonics that you get when you're playing distortion, those are generated from what's called hard clipping. I'm not going to get too nerded out into this. But basically that's, every sound is a wave form, and then they have, this typical wave form's kind of like I don't know. I can't really describe it. I'm doing it on my camera, but it's hard to describe. But clipping is when the tops and bottoms basically of that wave get compressed, and then those edges are where the hard clipping comes in, and that's when the overtones happen, or the harmonics happen. That's a super dumbed down, probably horribly explained version of what that is. But that's basically where that comes from. So and that generates harmonics, which are different noises and sounds that aren't being played, but they're being generated by the strings vibrating and how that reacts with the amp's distortion. It's just they're natural. That's where it comes from. Same with the overtones. You get different overtones just with how hard you pick the strings, how hard you fret the strings. There's a lot of things that get created there, as well as distortion is a natural compression. So you can soften up how you pick something, and then if you get louder, it only gets to a certain point. And that changes the tone and the overtones and the harmonics, the whole thing. It all works together, but only gets to a certain point of volume, and then that's it. So that it all works together. Maybe amp sims aren't as touchy. I mean, some of them are great. Some of them you can't tell. We've all kind of, well, it's a generalization, but whatever. We've all gone on YouTube and heard some shootout over a real amp versus an amp sim. And a lot of times there's a lot of things that you do or the person does where you can't tell the difference. You really can't. They have come such a long way. I remember back in call it about 20 years ago when that Line 6 pod came out. At that time, everybody was like, wow, this is so good. You can't tell the difference. And then you listen to it now and you're like, Jesus, we were stupid. A lot of those tones sound like absolute dog shit. And, that was 20 years ago in technology, which may as well be 300 years in human history or whatever, Grows at a substantial rate. So the amp sims now are way better than they were 5 years, way, way, way better than they were 20 years. And even though at this time we're like, wow, how can they get better? They'll get better. They're going to get better. That's kind of just how it rolls. They're going to get better. There's going to be different ways to capture those tones. People find a way. So maybe they're not quite as touchy yet. Some of them are. A lot of them probably aren't. Maybe they're just not quite as sensitive. The compression may be a little bit different. I know a lot of the higher gain ones, the higher end ones, I should say, react to how you use the volume control on your guitar pretty well. And I have I have a couple of those that are pretty dang good. And then I have like a preamp that I use as pretty decent. And then I have some that aren't very reactive. They do one thing pretty decent, but if you're not looking to do that one thing that amp will do, it really doesn't do anything. I have one amp that does the distortion pretty well. And until I started getting better ones, sounded pretty good. But now these days, it doesn't sound good really at all. But it does do a thing. And if I need that thing, I know it will do it. But if I don't need that thing, it sounds like trash. I I know they're not, maybe it's something because they don't change. They're not sensitive to power. A guitar amp, like I said before, is sensitive to dirty power in your house or wherever, as well as voltage changes. It won't sound as good if your voltage is lower. If you're hovering in the 110, 115, you're probably good. I know there's some amps that are like they want 120, they want 125, and they won't sound good unless they have that power. Anything less, it just seems to like choke them out. My amp isn't quite as sensitive to that, but I know it's got to be sensitive to some power needs, and it is sensitive to dirty power, but it's a high gain amp that is already kind of noisy. So if you have dirty power, it just accentuates it, and especially when you crank it, that noise threshold goes up substantially. Which goes to the next point of, maybe there's more headroom, less headroom. I'm not sure. I know you can kind of dial it in to whatever you need, where it seems as though an amp sim will kind of it'll handle whatever. But at the same time, there's other controls for that. So maybe you dial in your own headroom. It's kind of a strange thing, but you're not typically cranking a amp sim. You don't need to, because it's so consistent. It's going to sound the same if you have it, whatever, at minus 10 dB, or if it's going to be at 0. It's going to sound exactly the same. So maybe it's got infinite headroom. I don't know. It's kind of a strange idea, maybe. So now I know it seems like I've shit on my tube amp here for the last, whatever it's been, half an hour. So what's the verdict? What's the verdict? Is my amp a paperweight? Does the job. Does it real good. I bet if you put any paper underneath it, it ain't blowing away. So is it a paperweight? No. No, absolutely not. Hell no. Not a paperweight whatsoever. Thought about it for a little while since it's been hasn't been worked for like, however long, a year. I fired that thing up and you just hit like you hit an E chord or D chord or whatever, and it just like that power just plumes. And I had it up to like well, I was going to drop an F-bomb there, but whatever. I had it up too fucking loud. And it just, that power just came through my feet. You could feel it in your feet and your knees, and then it comes up through your balls and out your hands, and your head shakes, and you just get that feeling that only that can do. I guess it's kind of like if you sit in a muscle car and it's got like the exhaust note is just freaking fantastic, and you hit that gas and you're just like, oh, whoa. That's the same idea. I think the guitar amp might be better, but it's because I don't have a muscle car. I got a tube amp. It's a high gain tube amp, and it's awesome. Yeah, it's undeniable. That doesn't happen with every amp. So let me be clear with that. Just like I was talking about before, of not every amp is unforgiving. Some you can get away with a lot of shit. Some amps are kind of sterile. There's no life to them. There's no character. And I've played through plenty of those amps. Line 6 amps. Oh, wait. Oh, did I say it out loud? Anyways, the spider ones. Yeah, I said it out loud. If you think your Line 6 spider amp is awesome, play through a real amp. Not talking shit. Just saying. Play through a real amp and you'll be opened up to what I'm talking right now. But you don't feel these things unless you have a real good amp. I think at this point, I've been in the game, quote unquote, the game, long enough to realize that there's a lot of things that have been missing until you start playing through a real good amp. A really great amp is going to expose you. It's going to expose all your weaknesses. If you're sloppy, you make a lot of weird noises with your hands. If you haven't practiced, it's going to expose all of that. But at that same time, having a great amp is going to make you feel like you can conquer the fucking world. It makes you feel invincible almost. You play through a real great amp, and you're getting the tone that just, like I said, makes you clench your fists and feel it in your body. Yeah, you feel like you're going to be able to mess some people up. False confidence there, to hide your crippling self-doubt that I talked about last week. But that will make you feel like you're on top of the world. So I think there's a big difference between amp sims and real amps. Some good, some bad, but there's definitely a place for both. There's no doubt about it. I don't want to be digging out my heavy, loud ass amp when I'm trying to write a demo at 9:30 at night when I can barely keep my eyes open. Or if I have an idea, I don't want to have to set up a bunch of mics and deal with all that and then try to find a tone and then lay my idea down. I want to come in. I want to turn my computer on, turn my interface on. I want to plug my guitar in. I want to dial in a tone and lay that idea down. And I can lay down an idea like that and I can be fired in 3 minutes. It probably takes it takes longer to tune my guitar than it does to lay down an idea for a chorus or a main riff for a song or whatever. The amp sims these days sound so good. They sound so amazing. The latest one that I got, I downloaded for free because the creator, I guess shout out to Fluff on YouTube there, Riffs, Beards, and Gear. Yeah, I'm going to name drop. Not that I know him. But his amp sims, he just dropped them. Whatever, with ML Sounds, ML Audio. Can't quite remember exactly what it is. But he came out with 4 amp sims. It simulates the 4 channels, one of each of his favorite amps. His favorite channel on each of his favorite 4 amps. And he put out one of them for free. And I downloaded that one. And it is ferocious. It is phenomenal. And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess I'm going to be using those tones for my new, when I'm writing new demos, at least for the distortion tone, because it's freaking awesome. He's got a bunch of different presets and stuff like that. And you can select a preset and not have to do anything else to it. It is awesome. And you can get that one for free. ML Sound Lab? I don't know. It's easy to find. There's this thing called Google. Figure it out. Awesome. I think that one's based, what is it, a 5134 or something? I can't quite remember. It's based on that, which is close to the amp that I have. Mine has 6L6s. That one's a EL34. But either way, it's sounds awesome. The IR, I believe, is a Mesa 412. But you can turn that IR off and use your own if you want to. And we'll get into IRs at some point, probably in life. But anyways, those amp sims, they sound fan-freaking-tastic. But there is no way I'm ever getting rid of my friggin' amp. I could tell you that. I got to play it. That thing, it's like a muscle car. That thing's made to be driven. My amp's made to be driven. You got to use that thing. So I guess as far as that goes, I need to use my amp. I should probably just stop being lazy. So, well, that's the show for today. I appreciate it, everybody. My name's Johnny Ruckus. Again, this has been episode 4 of Can I Get More Podcasts in My Monitor? And we'll talk to you next week. Thank you very much.